I want to share a few of our productivity tips, our online PeopleSoft productivity tips with you. So here I am in PeopleSoft and I'm logged in and I decide that I want a new window. So I'm going to, well, here in 858, I just click on the new window link, right? And here, let's do this. Let's grab the URL from the first window and then let's grab the URL from the second window. And let's put them together here so we can review them and see them. Okay, now let's visit some other page. In real life, I'd probably log in here and I might go to, I don't know, a very common place for me to go is to PeopleTools, Portal, Structure and Content, and then open up a content reference. Let's just grab one here. And as I'm looking at this content reference, usually investigating something, I might say to myself, you know what? I need to look at another content reference with this one in context. And so I'll say, how about I click on the, oh, in Classic, there's usually a new window link in the upper right corner, isn't there? Except not here. For some reason, on some components, the PeopleTools teams or the apps development teams have chosen to disable the new window link. Why? I don't know. I don't know why. What I do know is I want a new window link here because I want to be able to view two windows at the same time. Well, here, let's go back and let's look at the URL here for the two windows we created earlier, the original and the new window link. And you'll notice the server's the same, the servlet, the Java code that's running on the web server, same. But after that, we see my site name. My site name happens to be PS. Now on the original window, it's PS nothing. And then on the new window, it's PS_5. Okay, now if I did have a new window link here, in fact, let's go back one level. There's a new window link here. If I hover over the new window link, but look down in the status bar, I can see there's a little JavaScript fragment there and it has the site name. It says PS_. I'd move my mouse down there, point to it, but as soon as I do, it'll go away. It says site name PS_new win. You see, if we want a new window, let's go forward to our My System profile. If I want a new window, I can grab the URL for this one, paste it in a new window, but update the site name _new win, which is exactly what would happen if I were to click on that link. It would open a new tab, give me a new URL with _new win after the site name. Now, when I hit the enter key, you can see I'm actually now looking at window number 14. Over here, I call it window 0. And over here, and in the other tab, it's window 14. So 2 separate URLs, 2 separate components, both hitting the same web server. You see, that's a very important distinction. When we're using PeopleSoft and I'm working over here, I'm manipulating the component buffer. It's in memory, and that memory address, the contents of the component buffer, is stored at the web server. And in this other window, when I'm looking at a totally different content reference, I'm also working with manipulating a component buffer, but it's a different component buffer at the same web server. Somehow PeopleSoft has to keep those two separate. How does it do it? It does it through that number there in the URL, the _new window part, the new window 14. If I were to hit new window again, _new win, I would probably get 15. Perfect. And again, I would get 16. And this is funny though, watch this. When I click the home button and then try new win again, what do you think, 17? 21. Why? Because there are several dynamic tiles here, and every one of those dynamic tiles gets its own component buffer pointer at the web server. Again, it'll jump up several by the count of the dynamic tiles, 21 to 26. So the web server maintains the pointer to the component buffer, and it does so based on that number. I like to think of this number here sort of like a pointer into a hash table, where each component buffer is stored in a different slot at the web server, and this number points to that slot. So if by chance, if I ever, like here I'm looking at 0, and over here I'm looking at 26, if I do something that causes this one to point back to 0, then whatever was the last component I visited with that URL, that's going to be what's going to go into that slot at the web server. That component is. So you probably experienced this before where you're working in two windows and then you're doing something in this window, then you go back over to this window and it says this is not the last component you visited. You're like, oh no, what happened? Well, somehow the two numbers got clobbered there and now you have two URLs pointing at the same address. This happened a lot in Classic when you'd click the home button in your new window because the old home button in Classic would take you back to the 0, the top level slot there, memory address in the at the web server. So I don't know, what do you think? Do you want to have your users typing in new window each time they want a new window? I don't know. I don't know. Do you want to type in underscore new win every time you want a new window when you're on, say, for example, 854 through 857 working with Fluid because they don't have a new window link in Fluid? Or perhaps you're on some of those older Classic pages where the development teams have turned off the new window link. I had an idea. How about this? We put together a hyperlink here that you can drag into your bookmarks bar in your web browser. It's a JavaScript fragment that searches for this section here in the URL. It looks for the site name and replaces the site name with underscore new win. So now from anywhere, any PeopleSoft page, any server, you can click on new win and get new windows. You don't have to use the new window link here, click, click, versus a single click. So I had another tip for you. Let's say I'm visiting, let's go to workforce admin, job information, job data. And let's say that we wanted to configure job data. How about hiding the compensation information for specific individuals? So let's find the field we want to hide. So here I am, I'm on a search page of a component, and we want to go to earnings distribution, and there's the comp rate information. Okay, so now I know what I want to hide. So I would hopefully, in a new window, go to enterprise components, page configurator, and make the configuration changes that I want. After I'm done mapping, I'd come back here to test it out. And of course, I would need to refresh, wouldn't I? So I hit the refresh button and, oh, look at that. I have to do that whole search thing again, KU0007. And after find the transaction I'm interested in, navigate in through the component to the appropriate page, locate the comp rate and say, oh no, I forgot to hit the map button. It happens to me every time. So then what do I do? Yeah, I hit the refresh button and I start all of that over again. You ever get annoyed with those repetitive steps where you think to yourself, boy, if I could only just hit refresh and stay right here, wouldn't that be awesome? Actually, we can. You see, with the appropriate attributes on the PeopleSoft URL, it will stay within the same transaction and on this exact same page. We can tell PeopleSoft, what page do we want to view in a component? What transaction do we want to view when we land on that component? We can provide all that information. In fact, we could even say, I want to be in correct history mode. How do you do that? Well, we need to put the keys on the URL. So let's see, Emple ID equals KU0007. Do you know all of the keys for all of the components that you visit? I don't. This one's easy. I mean, we use job data so much. Yeah, I know that one pretty well. But fortunately, there is there's a JavaScript variable that stores the current URL. And how you access it depends on, is this Classic, is it Fluid, is it an activity guide, is it not an activity guide? But in Classic, it would be frames, target, oh, there it is. And that gives us the URL with our level 0 keys as well as the target page in the URL. All we need to do is move that URL up into the address bar so we can hit the refresh button every time we want to view it. So let's try this. How about top.location.href equals. Now, what do you think? I mean, on the one hand, that's really cool. On the other, do you remember the JavaScript fragment I just typed in? I don't. And I have to look it up every time I use it. And do you want to type that in every time? I don't. So again, we put together another little fragment here. I call it the refreshable URL. So in our blog, and we'll be sure to provide a link to this blog post in the video description, but I just grab that JavaScript fragment, that URL, the hyperlink, drag it into my bookmarks bar, and then from any PeopleSoft page, I can hit the refreshable URL. Let's do this so that it clears out the URL again. Let's go to job data, find an instance, KU0010. Oops. And let's try a different page this time. How about benefits program participation? Hit refreshable URL. And now we are there. So we can just keep hitting refresh all day long, staying on the exact same page. Okay, so now occasionally I find myself having to make the same change to a bunch of different servers. Maybe perhaps it's a dev pool and I'm cycling through the dev pool, making the same change to every single one of those servers. Each server, of course, has a different server ID, but it's the same page, same component, same change. A really common place for me to do that would be under the web profile. So let's go to PeopleTools, web profile configuration, and I'm going to open the prod profile. And how about on the debugging tab, actually, the show connection sysinfo and the generate HTML for testing? Those are two very common settings for me to have to work with. So I'll press the save button here. Okay, this server's done, right? So what do? You sign out, you go to the next server, you navigate, you find the page, visit the search page, all those steps again. There's so many repetitive tasks there. And I think to myself, boy, can I automate any of those? Is there a shortcut that I can use? And the answer, of course, is yes. So here's what I'm going to do. In a new window and on the old window, so I'll hit my refreshable URL here so that I can stay on this page. Just, keep hitting refresh, stay on this page. And in the new window, I'm going to sign out. I would change my server information to point to the new server, sign back in, update this one for the new server, and then hit the enter key. Stay at the same place. I've saved myself all the navigation. I've saved myself having to look up the transaction at the search page. And I saved myself having to switch to the search page. All I have to do is just cycle through, come over here, sign out, sign back in, change server, sign back in, change server, enter, sign out, in another tab. You have to remember that. Switch to the other tab before you sign out. That's the one thing that I have on occasion. I have my template here basically all set up, and sometimes I'll forget. I'll sign out here and start over again. Oh no. But anyway, at JSM Pros, we teach PeopleTools tips and tricks like this nearly every week. Be sure to check out our website to see what we're offering next. Or here's an idea. Subscribe to our Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter feeds to receive updates every time we post a new course. Or do you have a group that's ready to learn new PeopleTools tips and tricks? Give us a call. Let's get something on the schedule. I have a question for you before we go. Do you have a topic you'd like us to cover in a future soundbite? Share it with us at soundbites.jsmpros.com. And now, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more content. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.